My boyfriend proposed to me in front of a crowd only to reveal it was all a joke. A bet. His friends were laughing while I stood there, humiliated beyond words. I thought I'd fall apart. But months later, when I'd already rebuilt myself, he came crawling back, begging, crying. What he didn't know, I wasn't the same girl he played with. I was better, stronger, and already taken. If you'd asked me back then what love looked like, I would have told you Jake Bennett. You know the type. Tall, smirky, the kind of guy who always has gum in his mouth and bad ideas in his head. He had that messy dark hair girls fantasize about pulling during arguments, and a voice that could make ordering fast food sound like poetry. I met him at a mutual friend's rooftop party. I was sipping a warm White Claw, wearing thrifted jeans and trying not to sweat through my vintage tee. He walked up like he already knew I'd say yes to whatever he was selling. Is your name Google? Because you've got everything I'm searching for. I rolled my eyes so hard I almost saw my brain. But I laughed anyway. And that was it. Game over. We started texting nonstop after that night. Late night FaceTimes. Cute little voice notes in the morning. He called me trouble like it was a compliment, and I let him get away with it because every time his name lit up my phone, I got butterflies. No freaking pterodactyls. The first red flag. I ignored it. Classic me. We'd been seeing each other for a few weeks when I posted a photo of us at brunch. Nothing dramatic, just me smiling. Him looking at the camera like he was too cool for mimosas. Not even 20 minutes later, I got a DM from some girl I didn't know. Just FYI, you're not the only one he's bringing to this place. Check the tagged photos. Heart racing, I clicked. There she was. Another girl, same restaurant, same exact table, 2 weekends ago. I asked him about it. He shrugged. She's just a friend. Chill. And I did. I told myself I was being paranoid. Insecure. That maybe I wasn't cool girlfriend material if I started snooping. But it didn't stop. The weird little things added up. He always turned his phone face down. He never posted me, even though he posted everything else, his lunch, his shoes, even a random pigeon once. Still, I stayed. Because every time I tried to walk away, he'd pull me back with just the right mix of charm and sad puppy eyes. I've never felt this way before, he told me one night, curled up in my bed, his voice all raspy and raw, and I believed him. I wish I could go back and shake myself. The final straw came when he invited me to his birthday dinner. It was at this bougie restaurant downtown, the kind with velvet chairs, 30 cocktails, and mood lighting so low you could barely see your menu. He told me to wear something nice, so I pulled out my go-to black dress, the one that hugs in all the right places and makes me feel like $1,000,000. I even straightened my hair, which I never do unless I'm really trying. When I walked in, I immediately felt like I didn't belong. His friends were already there, slick, stylish, loud. Most of them barely looked at me, just kept talking about crypto and some club opening. Jake stood up and grinned. There she is, he said, like I was the main event. And then, he did it. He dropped down on one knee. Deadass. In front of everyone. People at other tables turned to watch. One of his friends whipped out a phone. My heart was doing backflips in my chest. Oh my God, I whispered, half laughing, half shaking. He pulled out a little velvet box. I covered my mouth. And then he opened it. Empty. Psych, he said, laughing. You really thought? His friends burst out laughing. One even clapped. I just stood there, frozen. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might puke. Some people at nearby tables looked horrified. A waitress stopped mid-step. And me? I just smiled. That kind of hollow smile you do when your whole body is screaming but your face is stuck. I didn't say a word. I turned around and walked out. And he didn't follow me. Not until days later when he finally realized the girl he used to toy with was gone. I didn't make it more than 3 blocks before I broke down crying. You know that kind of cry where you're not even sure if you're sobbing or hyperventilating? Yeah, that was me. Mascara down my cheeks. Heels in one hand, Uber app in the other, standing outside a freaking dry cleaners on a Friday night like it was some sort of sad girl pilgrimage. I called my best friend, Ava. Didn't even say hello, just breathed into the phone like I'd run a marathon through hell. She answered on the 3rd ring. What happened? He fake proposed to me, I choked. In front of all his friends. For fun. Dead silence. Then he... What? I told her everything. Every excruciating detail. Ava was already halfway into murder mode by the time I said empty ring box. Girl, I'm getting in my car. Do you want me to fight him or just key his car? I can do both. I laughed through my tears. Ava always knew how to show love with threats and gasoline. No, I sniffled. I just want to go home. She ordered me ramen, wine, and cookies on Uber Eats before I even got back to my apartment. That's real love. Jake could never. That night, I didn't sleep. I just kept replaying it all, his smirk, the laughter, the way none of his friends stood up for me, how I'd been played like an actual joke. It wasn't just the fake proposal. It was every little time he made me feel like I wasn't enough, but wrapped it in a compliment so I'd thank him for it. It was death by 1,000 charming cuts. I didn't hear from him the next day. Or the day after that. What I did hear were whispers. Apparently the video made its way onto TikTok. Yeah. Someone in the restaurant had filmed it. Captured the whole damn moment. The knee drop, the laughter, my stunned face, the walkout. The caption was brutal. Girl gets fake proposed to in public and dips. Is this the new trend or just cruel AF? Thousands of views. Comments like I would have thrown the wine in his face. This is actually sociopathic behavior. Hope she dumped his ass. The internet had my back more than he ever did. By Monday, Jake finally texted, "Hey, can we talk?" I stared at my screen, heart pounding not from hope but from pure rage. I didn't respond. 2 hours later, I didn't think you'd take it that seriously. It was just a joke. A joke. A joke. I was your girlfriend, not your content. I blocked his number. That should have been the end of it. But of course, toxic men are like cockroaches. You think they're gone. And suddenly, they're in your kitchen again. I went full ghost mode. Deleted our photos. Archived every message. Started therapy because, honestly, I should have gone before dating him. But better late than broken forever. Ava and I made it our personal mission to rebuild me from the ground up. She called it Operation Glow Up. We hit the gym, not for abs, but for serotonin. We went dancing, wore outrageous outfits, and flirted shamelessly with guys who weren't complete dumpster fires. I even dyed my hair copper, which was my way of saying, I'm not her anymore. And somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, healing actually started. I wasn't fine overnight. I cried in the shower more times than I'd admit, but I also started laughing again. Loud, real, belly-deep laughs, not because of a guy, but in spite of one. And that was power. One night, while scrolling through Insta in bed, I saw it. Jake posted on his story. He was at a bar with 2 of his friends from that same dinner. They were doing shots and shouting something into the camera, half drunk. But right before it cut out, I heard it. Still can't believe she thought it was real. They were still laughing about it. Still. I stared at my screen, blood boiling, heart pounding, and that's when I made a decision. I wasn't going to be their punchline anymore. They wanted a story, I'd give them one. It started with the burner account. Don't judge me. I wasn't trying to catfish him or anything. I just wanted to watch, to see what he was posting, who he was with, if he even pretended to feel bad. Spoiler alert, he didn't. The dude was thriving, at least on the outside. New outfits, new parties, new girls. Every other weekend, he was posting thirst traps. And those lame gym selfies, where he looks at himself in the mirror like he's about to propose to his own biceps. But what really got me? He kept telling the story, turning my humiliation into his party trick. Yo, remember when I fake proposed to that girl? Like I was some stupid little footnote in his highlight reel. So I made a new plan. A better one. A legendary one. Step 1, upgrade my life so hard they'd choke on it. Step 2, let them see it. Let it burn. I started small, got serious about my side hustle custom design work. I'd always had an eye for digital art, but I'd been low-key about it. Now, I was posting, promoting, and getting actual commissions. Suddenly, I wasn't just Jake's ex. I was that girl with the firebrand. Then I posted a series of photos. Casual, glowy revenge body in full effect selfies. Not thirst traps, artful thirst suggestions. You know the vibe. Just enough skin to raise eyebrows, but not enough for your aunt to unfollow. Caption? She's not coming back, but thanks for the trauma. Within 2 hours, I had 10 DMs. 3 from guys I hadn't talked to since high school. 1 from a girl who wrote, "You're my villain arc inspiration." And, of course, a message from Jake's best friend, Lucas. Hey, random, but are you free Friday? I almost laughed out loud. These dudes had no loyalty. None. I didn't reply. Just left him on read like he'd left me on read that night after the fake proposal. Oh, how the tables were table-ing. That same week, I reconnected with this guy named Noah. We'd had 1 class together back in college media ethics, aka nap hour. He was quiet back then, a little nerdy, but cute, in that I read all the terms and conditions kind of way. He messaged me after seeing my art account blow up. Didn't realize you were that talented. Want to collab sometime? We met for coffee. 1 hour turned into 2. 2 turned into weekly hangouts. Turns out Noah had grown up and glowed up. Still soft-spoken, but in that I'd rather listen than talk kind of way. He didn't try to impress me. He didn't brag. He just showed up. By the end of our 3rd meeting, I was blushing like a schoolgirl with a crush. Which, yeah, guilty. One night after a gallery pop-up, Noah offered me a ride home. We were parked in front of my apartment when he turned to me and asked, "Did he ever apologize?" I blinked. Who? He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Jake. I was at that restaurant. I saw what he did. My breath caught. You saw? I wanted to say something, but I froze. I've regretted it, ever since. I didn't know what to say. No one had ever admitted that. Most people pretended, it never happened, like it was too messy to touch. Then Noah looked at me and said, "You didn't deserve that. None of it. I just thought you should hear it from someone who saw it all." I swear to God I could have cried right there. But I didn't. I kissed him instead. Slow, soft, sweet. The kind of kiss that says, "Thank you for seeing me." After that, things moved fast. We weren't official. Not yet. But I was smiling more, sleeping better, laughing again for real this time. And just when I thought I'd left the worst behind, Jake came back, like a glitch in the Matrix, like a ghost you never invited. It was a Thursday. I was in bed, hair tied up, hoodie on, watching reality TV with a face mask and a bag of kettle corn. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Dumb move. Hey, came the voice. It was him, Jake, like a cold draft in the middle of a warm room. I saw your stuff online, he said, trying to sound casual. Your art, your photos, you look good. Silence. I've been thinking about you, he added, almost whispering now. A lot. I waited, and then he said it. The thing that lit the fire under every last piece of me. I made a mistake. I had to actually pull the phone away from my ear for a second. You know that meme where the girl is like, BFRRN? That was me. Live, on the phone, staring at my ceiling in stunned disbelief. Jake had the audacity to call me months after publicly humiliating me. After I'd rebuilt myself. After he turned my pain into bar banter and say he made a mistake. My brain short-circuited. He kept going, like he hadn't detonated my entire self-worth back in that restaurant. I was stupid. I thought it would be funny. But I realized I messed up. You're different, you know? Not like those other girls. There it was. The classic line. The backhanded compliment served on a trash platter. Not like the other girls. I swear, if I had $1 for every time a man said that to me like it was a badge of honor, I could buy a new nervous system to replace the one he fried. I let the silence hang heavy, just enough to make him squirm. Then, cool as ice, I said, "Why are you calling me now?" He hesitated, then mumbled something about seeing me at a mutual friend's story, about how beautiful and successful I looked now, like I hadn't always been that girl, like I wasn't enough until the world finally noticed too. I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled. Jake, I said calmly, do you remember what you said that night? When I walked out? He was quiet. You didn't say anything, I said, my voice tight. You just let me leave, and then you laughed with your friends. You mocked me. You turned me into a joke. For what clout? A few likes? You didn't mean to get caught, I snapped. You didn't mean for the internet to care. You didn't mean for me to level up without you. He started to protest, but I wasn't done. You don't get to realize I was worth it after the damage is done. This isn't a rom-com. There's no last-minute sprint to the airport. I'm not your redemption arc. And then I hung up, blocked the number, tossed my phone on the bed and just breathed. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness this time. From power. I'd waited so long for that moment where he'd finally see what he lost. But when it came, it didn't even feel good. It felt necessary, like closing a door that had been creaking open for too long. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from unknown numbers. No voicemails, just Jake spiraling quietly in the background of my life. I didn't respond. Instead, I posted a photo from the night before me and Noah at this rooftop art event, arms around each other, city lights glowing behind us. Caption? Don't worry. I made better choices. It got more likes than any photo I'd ever posted. But the best part? The peace that came with it. That week, I poured myself into my art. My commission list was full. I got featured in a design blog. I even booked a panel talk at a local creative conference. I wasn't just healing. I was thriving. Ava called me the next day, laughing so hard she could barely get the words out. Girl. Jake tried to slide into my DMs. I nearly choked on my smoothie. He what? Yeah, she said, between giggles. He said, and I quote, I guess I was hanging with the wrong friend. I went feral. Ava wasn't even mad. She was cackling. I blocked him, obviously. But like, wow, the man has zero shame. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't some tragic love story. It was a comedy, a cautionary tale, a PSA on what happens when a manipulative clown realizes the circus left without him. But I was done watching his act. That same night, Noah invited me to his studio to help him prep for a client shoot. I showed up in sweats and messy hair, expecting to play assistant. Instead, I walked in and found the space covered in fairy lights, candles, and little prints of my artwork hanging on strings across the walls. He turned around, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. I know we've been taking it slow, he said, nervous but smiling, but I'd really like to be something more, if you're ready. My brain didn't spiral. My heart didn't race from panic, it fluttered from joy. I walked up, took the flowers, and kissed him. I'm ready. Okay, listen. I know this is where the movie version would cut to a time-lapse montage of me and Noah laughing in bed, painting together, feeding each other strawberries or whatever, but real life, it's messier. Because even though I said I was ready, part of me still had scars, tiny little shrapnel pieces from Jake that would poke through in the quiet moments. Like, I'd flinch when Noah reached for my phone to show me something. Or I'd panic if he didn't text me back for a few hours, immediately assuming I was being ghosted, used, or prepped to be the punchline in someone else's group chat. That's trauma, babe. And trauma doesn't care if your new man is a walking green flag. Noah noticed. But instead of pulling away, he leaned in. I get it, he told me one night, while we were half wrapped in a blanket on his tiny studio couch. You don't have to pretend you're fine all the time. That's the thing about Noah. He didn't just tolerate my broken parts, he saw them, held space for them, helped me unlearn the idea that love has to be earned through suffering. I started therapy again. Like, serious therapy. Not the kind where you spend 40 minutes talking about your cat and then panic in the last 5. I mean digging deep, naming the wounds, unpacking the years of being told I was too much, too dramatic, too needy. Turns out, I wasn't too anything. I was just surrounded by people who couldn't hold the depth of me. Meanwhile, Jake's world was crumbling. It started with little things. Rumors from mutual friends. A video of him at a party, clearly drunk, yelling at someone to stop bringing up that TikTok. Apparently, he'd tried dating again, but word travels fast, and no girl was interested in being his next joke. Karma? Karma had a subscription plan with expedited shipping. The final blow came when he got kicked off his friend's podcast. Yeah, they had some lame little bro advice show called Modern Masculine Barf. But after sponsors saw the TikTok drama and all the heat it brought, canceled. Gone. I should have felt satisfied. And part of me did. But another part of me felt nothing. Because I wasn't the girl standing in that restaurant anymore. I wasn't shaking, crying, wondering what I did wrong. I was building something. With Noah. With my art. With myself. Still, the universe wasn't done testing me. One afternoon, I got a DM from a girl I didn't know. Hey, I hope this isn't weird, but I think you deserve to know Jake's been telling people you're obsessed with him and tried to get him canceled out of revenge. He's literally spinning this like he's the victim. I stared at the message for a full minute. Obsessed? I hadn't spoken his name in weeks, hadn't posted about him, hadn't even thought about him until now. I took a screenshot, sent it to Ava. She immediately FaceTimed me. So, do we burn his house down or just humiliate him publicly again? Dealer's choice. I laughed, but it was hollow. Then I had a better idea. I opened Instagram, pulled up my story, and posted this PSA: healing doesn't mean you forget what they did. It means you remember and choose peace anyway. Even when they keep writing fiction, the message was loud enough for him to hear it, subtle enough to stay classy, sharp enough to cut. Within minutes, I got a text from another blocked number. You're so dramatic. Grow up. I just smiled, then posted again. If you don't want to be a villain in someone's story, maybe don't act like one. Just a thought. Noah saw it later and just said, remind me never to get on your bad side. You won't, I said. You'd actually have to lie, cheat, and publicly humiliate me for that to happen. He pulled me into his arms and whispered, yeah, hard pass on all that. And for the first time in a long, long time, I believed him. By now, I had everything I once begged Jake for: emotional safety, validation that didn't feel like charity, someone who asked how my day was and actually listened. Hell, even consistent effort. Like, what a concept. But the wildest part? It didn't come from some dramatic self-reinvention. I didn't change who I was. I just stopped settling for people who made me feel like I had to. One morning, Noah and I were making breakfast in his little kitchen, both of us still in pajamas. I was flipping pancakes, he was singing badly into a whisk, and it hit me like a truck. I feel safe. That shouldn't have been a rare feeling. But after Jake, it felt revolutionary. Still, trauma's annoying habit is that it lingers. Even when you think it's gone, it shows up like a pop quiz when you haven't studied in months. For example, I got invited to a mutual friend's engagement party. The kind of fancy rooftop soiree with string lights, champagne towers, and all the old faces from that part of my life, including Jake. At first, I hesitated. I mean, why would I willingly walk back into the lion's den? But Ava looked at me, eyes gleaming, and said, you have to go. Not to prove anything to him, but to show you that you've already won. So I RSVP'd yes. And I did not come to play. I wore this deep emerald satin dress with a thigh slit that could start wars and heels that made my legs look like the cover of Vogue. My hair was done, my eyeliner was sharp, and my confidence? Unshakable. Noah walked in beside me, holding my hand, wearing a fitted black suit and that calm, quiet energy that screamed, I don't need to flex, I just am. Heads turned. Jake was already there, standing by the bar. When he saw me, his whole face shifted, like his brain couldn't quite process that I was real, and even worse, thriving. He didn't say anything at first, just stared. Later that evening, as Noah went to grab us drinks, Jake made his move. He walked up, solo, nursing a glass of whiskey like it gave him personality. Wow, he said, glancing me up and down. Didn't think you'd actually show up. I turned toward him, smile polite, controlled, like I was looking at a man I once dreamt about, and now barely remembered. I almost didn't, I replied, but I figured it might be fun to see what disappointment looks like up close. He flinched, just for a second. Then he chuckled, pretending it didn't sting. Look, I know I messed up. I've said sorry, like 1,000 times. You texted my bad once, I corrected. And I meant it, he insisted. But you've been dragging this out, posting about it, turning people against me. Oh, there it was. The victim complex deluxe. You did that all by yourself, Jake, I said evenly. I just told the truth. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. You're seriously still bitter? No, I said, and meant it. I'm just not available for revisionist history. His eyes dropped, and for a second, I saw it, the shame, the regret, the realization that he wasn't the main character anymore. Then he said something I didn't expect. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I didn't smile. I didn't soften. I just nodded. Yeah, I said. I know. He blinked. But you treated me like a dare. Like some game to win, in front of your friends. And I know you regret that now, not because you miss me, but because I moved on before you could rewrite the ending. He didn't argue. Didn't apologize. Just stood there, looking smaller than I remembered. Then Noah returned with 2 glasses of wine. He slid an arm around my waist like it was second nature and handed me my drink. Jake watched us for a beat longer, then mumbled something about needing to find the bathroom and disappeared into the crowd. I turned to Noah. You okay? He asked, reading my face. More than okay, I whispered, clinking my glass against his. Closure tastes a lot like Sauvignon Blanc. We laughed, and for the first time since that night, I felt the final thread snap loose. Jake didn't haunt me anymore. He was just a ghost I used to know. That night, I wrote a letter. Not to Jake, to me. I know, it sounds cheesy, but I'd spent so much time waiting for someone else to validate my pain. An apology, a reckoning, some grand acknowledgement that I hadn't just imagined the hurt. But I realized, sitting on Noah's couch, his head in my lap while we half-watched a nature documentary, that I didn't need it anymore. Jake could keep his silence, his excuses, his pathetic one-liner, my bad. Because I finally had the only apology that mattered, the one I gave to the girl I used to be. I'm sorry I didn't leave sooner. I'm sorry I let you believe that pain meant passion. I'm sorry I convinced you that love had to hurt to be real. I'm sorry I let them laugh while you cried. But I'm not sorry for how you loved, or how you hoped, or how you picked yourself up even when no one clapped. You didn't deserve what happened to you. But you did deserve the life you have now. And you built it. Not Jake, not revenge. You. I folded the letter, tucked it in the back of my journal and cried. Not the gut-wrenching sobs from before, but those soft, release kind of tears. The ones that say, you made it. The next day, I booked a solo weekend trip. Just me, a small Airbnb by the coast, and my sketchbook. Noah offered to come, but I told him I needed this one for myself. And he got it. I'll miss you, he said, kissing my forehead. You better, I teased. I'm a whole national treasure. The Airbnb was perfect. Wooden floors, huge windows, ocean breeze that smelled like freedom. I spent mornings drawing, afternoons reading, and nights just being. On my last evening there, I watched the sun melt into the water, with a glass of red wine in one hand, and my old phone in the other, the one I hadn't touched since I got my new number. I powered it on, dozens of unread messages, mostly junk, a few old photos, and, buried in the inbox, a final voicemail from Jake. I played it. His voice was quiet, defeated. Not cocky, not mean, just small. I guess you blocked me everywhere. I deserve that. I know I was a jerk. Probably worse, I don't even know why I did it. I think I wanted to be seen as funny. Cool. And I ended up being the biggest loser in the room. I heard you're doing well. That you met someone, I'm happy for you. No, really. Just, if you ever think of me, I hope it's not all bad. I was a mess. But I never hated you. I hope you're happy. I really do. I deleted it without saving. Because I didn't need that either. He hoped I was happy. Good. Because I was. That weekend felt like a graduation. From the version of myself that tolerated crumbs, to the version that expected the whole damn cake. When I got back, Noah picked me up from the train station. He was holding a sign that said, "Welcome back, queen of never texting back." I laughed so hard, I almost dropped my bag. He kissed me like he'd waited a year, not just 3 days. In the car, he played a playlist he'd made while I was gone. It was full of soft indie songs, 2000s throwbacks, and that one track we slow danced to that night on his rooftop the first time I told him I felt safe. Halfway home, he looked over and said, "Can I ask you something? Always. If you could go back, would you change anything?" I thought about it. All of it. The fake proposal. The shame. The tears on the sidewalk. The therapy. The healing. The letter. The love. No, I said softly. I wouldn't. Not anymore. Because sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you becomes the reason for the best thing that ever does. By the time summer rolled around, I had officially entered my soft era. You know the vibe, candles lit for no reason, playlists curated for every mood, boundaries sharper than my eyeliner. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was thriving. And I didn't owe a single ounce of that peace to anyone but myself. My art business? Booming. I'd started selling prints online, and one of them even got featured in a home decor blog with the headline, 10 indie artists who will make your walls less boring. Was it the Louvre? No. But was it validation for years of doodling in the margins of my notebooks? Hell yeah. Noah and I were in that perfect golden phase, still butterflies, but also comfort, like he knew my coffee order and the exact moment to pull me into a hug without asking. We weren't obsessed with each other. We were safe with each other. And there's something wildly sexy about knowing someone won't weaponize your feelings or turn your vulnerability into content. One night we were lying in bed, me in his hoodie, him tracing shapes on my thigh, and he asked, Did you ever think you'd be this happy? And without even thinking, I said, number, because I didn't. I used to think relationships were either dramatic or dead, that love had to be chaos or nothing at all, that being chased meant being discarded and reeled back in 1,000 times until you were dizzy enough to call it passion. But this was soft and solid and real. And Jake? Well, Jake was still Jake. Ava sent me screenshots every now and then when his name popped up in group chats. The man had pivoted to pretending he was the victim of cancel culture, started posting sad quotes on his stories like, "People change, but memories don't." Okay, Tumblr 2012. Relax. At one point, he even followed Noah on Instagram, probably out of curiosity, maybe jealousy. I didn't care. Noah didn't follow back. But he did show me the request, and we laughed about it while eating microwave popcorn in bed like the petty gremlins we are. That same week, I got asked to speak at a women's networking event about building your brand after personal setbacks. At first, I almost said no, like, what could I possibly teach other people? But then I remembered that girl, the one standing in the middle of a restaurant, holding back tears while strangers whispered and her boyfriend laughed with his friends. If she could see me now, she'd be proud. So I said yes. The night of the event, I wore a white power suit that made me feel like a CEO and Beyoncé's backup dancer at the same time. My nails were done. My nerves were wrecked. But the second I got on that stage and saw a room full of women nodding while I spoke, I knew this was bigger than me. I told my story. The good, the bad, the mortifying. But most importantly, I talked about what came after. About how healing isn't linear. That sometimes growth looks like crying in the shower one night and designing a website the next. That it's okay to grieve the fantasy of who you thought someone was. And then I ended with this. If they made you feel like you weren't enough, it says more about them than it ever did about you. You don't need closure. You need clarity. And the clearest truth I've learned? You don't rise by proving your worth to the people who made you doubt it. You rise by loving the version of yourself that survived them. The applause was loud, but the pride? That was silent. Internal. Sacred. After the event, a girl came up to me, probably 19 or 20. Big eyes. Shaky hands. She said, "Your story? That was me. Last month." And I didn't know how I was going to move forward. But now? I think I do. We hugged, and for the first time, the pain I went through felt useful. Like maybe, just maybe, my scars weren't just reminders of what happened. They were blueprints for how to rebuild.